We think that there's a separation between the physical world and the non-physical world. And the truth is that there is not.
That law is so important. And I think it's one of the biggest ideas to kind of latch onto from today's episode.
When you start to think about the laws, because everything's through the law of relativity too, you understand that they're all just describing the same thing.
There's a blueprint to that goal. And if I focus on it and nurture it, it will grow and become reality. But can we play a game for a second?
Hi, I'm Dave Conway, and I'm here with my wife, Jacqueline. Welcome to the 30-Day Year. On this podcast, we're sharing stories, ideas, and philosophies to show you what it takes to turn your annual income into your monthly income. I've learned that the first step to creating a 30-day year is entertaining new ideas that might at first appear strange or even laughable. But stick with us as we reveal that this idea is a very real way to build success. Our plan is to spark curiosity into what you're capable of achieving by exploring ideas around freedom, contribution, work, life, everything. The content may even disturb your perception of life a bit too, which we hope it does. This podcast is not about us. It's all about you. So sit back, relax, and come in with an open mind. Welcome to the 30-Day Year.
Today we're going to get into a hot topic. This is something that is always very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like people are drawn to this topic. They feel like there's something here for them, that there's more to dig into. People are always requesting you to do more stuff about this, more
Sparks
talks.
curiosity.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It sparks curiosity. People are like, oh man, I need to understand this more deeply because Dave Conway keeps talking about universal law and universal laws, and there's something here for me. There's more for me to understand. And so this is going to be our attempt to give you as much as we can in as much time as a podcast will allow us to give, because we could probably honestly do an entire podcast about this topic. Like do you know what I mean? Like we would just do episodes just about universal law, and we could easily fill airwaves for hours and hours. So we're going to try to put it into a succinct, understandable way that will take the 7 universal laws to help you apply them to your life, to apply them to the way you set goals, and then also apply them to the way you achieve those goals too. So it's going to be fun.
One of my favorite topics is the universal laws. Mm-hmm. I've been asked many times, why do you teach the universal laws? Well, the universal laws have done more for me than religion. I teach the universal laws to create more faith and understanding. And I'm not trying to down religion or anything like that. I want to be very clear about that. But I think when it comes to faith, I think we need understanding. And when you have understanding, there's really no need for faith. Mm-hmm. So these universal laws have helped me orientate myself in this world. They've helped me orientate myself in my relationship with a divine power. They've helped me orientate myself in how I achieve success. And to understand that this entire universe operates by law, I'm just trying to figure out, how do I fit into it? Mm-hmm. How do I fit into it?
Well said, Dave. Well said. I feel like I fully agree with all the sentiments you just shared. I think universal laws has also helped me develop more faith in myself, develop more faith and comfort in the world I live in, helping me understand how I am a part of this world. I'm not separate from it. And I don't think I ever thought I wasn't part of this world, but I didn't understand that when I learned these laws in physics class in high school, that they applied to me and the way I work, just the way they apply to the matter in general on the planet. So I think it's an incredible topic and a great thing for us to share with our audience. So where do we start?
Well, I can start by saying the 7 basic laws.
Let's do that.
Let me start with that, and then I'd like to share a couple cool questions I asked myself one day. So, as we start with the 7 universal laws, we need to understand like a basic fundamental truth, which is energy is. So there was a very intelligent man that lived quite a few hundred years ago called Leibniz. And I think it was Gottfried Leibniz. And I was watching that Bill Gates documentary. Do you remember that one? Where it was like a 3-parter or something like that?
Yep.
And Bill Gates was in his library, and I saw Leibniz books in there. I was like, oh, Leibniz, man. Anyway, Leibniz, he was the first person to say that energy is. So he used to have a friend, another scientist, philosopher, that he would write to. And I always get this image where him and this friend of his are actually like in the den together, you know, the fire's there, and Leibniz is with his friend. His friend's come in to visit him. And as Leibniz is sitting there, he's looking around, very, very curious, very almost like suspicious. And he looks over at his friend and he says, I think everything is the same thing. And then his friend like looks around, cognac in his hand or something. And he looks around and he's like nodding his head. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And he's the first guy to say that energy is. You see, prior to that, we didn't have this information. That's just something you got to understand about information. Information is always there. It's just revealed. There's no creation of new information. It's just revealed.
Right.
Information. So Albert Einstein, he never invented the law of relativity. The law of relativity has always been there. He just became aware of the law of relativity and could communicate that law to other people. So Leibniz basically started the process of saying, or the thought or the information that energy is. So now science will tell us that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So that would mean that everything is already here in one form or another. So if you went up to a person or a scientist, you said, what's energy? They say, well, energy is what? Well, energy is energy. Okay, well, tell me more. They wouldn't be able to. If you went up to a theologian and you said, what's God? They say, well, God is the Alpha and the Omega. And say, well, tell me more. They wouldn't be able to. It just is. It's beyond comprehension. So when it comes to the universe, when it comes to energy, when it comes to life itself, the truth is we know very, very little. But we do know that this energy moves through strict laws. If I held this pen in my hand out right now and I dropped it, if I let go of it, it would drop. Why? The law of gravity or the law of relativity. Even if I took this pen and I'm on Earth, I took this pen and I said, okay, you listen up, pen. You listen to me. I'm going to hold you out and I'm going to let go of you, but you're not going to fall. You're going to stay in the air. And I command it and demand it. And I held it out and I let go. The chances are it's going to fall. Now, how do we know that? Because it's law through observation. So Edgar Mitchell, who's the 6th man on the moon, he said, there is no such thing as miracles. There's just gaps in awareness. There's just gaps in the laws that govern this place. So what we need to understand as people, that if energy is neither created nor destroyed, and everything in the universe is energy, then you need to grasp this idea. Your mind is a form of energy. And because your mind is in the universe, it must, by law, be governed by laws. And there are 7 basic laws that govern the universe. The first law is the perpetual transmutation of energy. What's that? That is a law that states that energy is constantly moving from one form to another form. So, for example, if we took a liter of water and we poured it into a pot and we left that pot on the counter, it would stay in a liquid state. If we took that pot of water and we put it on the stove and we turned it up and we applied heat to it, the heat would then alter the vibration of that water and it would turn into steam. If that steam was left to accumulate over time, it would then turn back into water and it would drop down. And then we could then collect that water and we could put it into the freezer and then it would become ice, perpetually changing its state all the time. You can eat food, that food turns into poop, and then the poop gets spread onto a field, and then that turns into a carrot, and on and on and on it goes. It's perpetual transmutation of energy. The second law that governs our lives and the universe is the law of cause and effect. Everything is action, reaction. So the effect is inside of the cause. The oak sleeps in the acorn. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that the law of cause and effect is the law of laws. It governs the entire thing. The third law is the law of vibration. This law states that everything vibrates, nothing rests. So when Leibniz was saying that I think everything is the same thing, and then his friend is like, by George, I think you're right. I actually think he was French or something. I don't think he would have said it like that. By George, I think you're right. So it's like, all right, well, this physical world in which we see is just the manifestation of a non-physical world. There's another scientist called Boltzmann, and he ended up killing himself, actually. But Boltzmann, he basically discovered the atom. Like, he started to theorize that there's this invisible energy, and it's all the same energy, but it's just moving on different frequencies and moving at different speeds. And that's what's binding everything, like a magnet. So the law of vibration states that everything is vibrating, nothing rests. So it's all the same energy, just showing up in different forms based on the vibration that it's in. And human beings operate on a vibration. Now, a lot of people talk about the law of attraction. What they need to understand is the law of attraction is a secondary law. The law of vibration is the primary law. So if you put an acorn into the ground, that acorn is vibrating. It has information in it, and it will attract all the nutrients and everything it needs to, over time, turn into a giant oak tree. So you need to understand that it's the vibration. If it was a carrot seed, which vibrates differently, if it was a carrot seed, then it would turn into a carrot. And vibrations can only replicate their own vibrations. The fourth law is the law of polarity. This law states that everything has an opposite. So if the floor is 10 feet from the ceiling must by law be 10 feet from the floor. The next law is the law of relativity. This law states that everything just is until it's compared to something else. And that's why the 30-day year philosophy is so badass, because what we're doing is we're trying to unhook your comparisons and judging where you are to where you can go. So nothing's big nor small. It's our thinking that makes it so. So if I said to you, Jacq, let's say you drew like a big letter A on a piece of paper. And I'd say, well, is A big or small? You would say, well, A just is, because you're not comparing it to anything else. But if I told you to draw the letter B that was half the size of A, you would then say that A is big, B is small, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then if I told you to draw the letter C that's half the size of letter B, you would say that B is big and C is small.
Yep.
But B is smaller than A, but it's bigger than C. So it's big and small. That's kind of weird.
Right.
So everything just is.
Right.
The next law is the law of rhythm. This law states that everything moves in pattern. Seasons follow the seasons.
Cycles, yeah.
Cycles. Mm-hmm. The sun goes up, the sun goes down. Spring follows winter.
The tide.
The tide, constantly. Now, when this comes to a human being, a lot of us were stuck in a paradigm. We're stuck in a rut. And we try and break these cycles. Human beings can actually break the cycle that we're in. But you need serious information, and you need to follow the 30-day year philosophy, because you can get stuck in the same old cycle. Human beings can change their cycle. And then the last one is the law of gender or gestation. Now, this law states that everything needs to be fused. There's a masculine and a feminine to everything. And when those two things fuse, then gestation begins. So an example would be, let's say a husband and wife get together, blissful fusion happens, sperm hits the egg. As soon as that fusion happens, 50% from mom, 50% from dad, a little baby starts. And that's the law of gestation. We know, Jacq, we know the physical gestation. We know the timeline for every physical seed, but we do not know the gestation period for non-physical seeds. That's where faith comes in. Faith is the ability to focus on an idea or a goal because we know that anything that's focused on, anything that receives energy grows. Anything that's denied energy, it dies. So if you take a plant and you put it into a dark closet and that plant needs sunlight, that plant's going to die. I used to have a plant that would experience like cycles where I didn't treat it that good, and then it would start to die, and then I said, I better treat it good and put it in this windowsill and water it, and then boom, it would start to come back to life. Okay, that's the law of gestation. But anything that's focused starts to bring life to it. So those are the 7 basic laws, and they govern a person's life.
For sure, that's a great breakdown. If you're new to the laws, listen to that again and just get those in your head. That's great information. And I think the first step to actually living out what this episode is about, which is live by universal law, is to just know the laws. So first step is just to know the laws. I'd say the second step is to learn how they apply to you, or how they work within a human being. And maybe there's time today to go through every single law today, but how do these laws move through us? Like, how would you demonstrate that? Say for the perpetual transmutation of energy, how does that move through a human being?
Like when it comes to like goal achievement?
Yeah, through goals, yeah.
So if you think about thought as non-physical, right? So what we want to understand is that there's 2 forms of thought. There's intangible form, and then there's tangible. So that's immaterial form of thought, which we're mostly accustomed to. Like if you ask somebody, what's thought? They'll be like, oh, it's this like thing going on in my head or whatever. So we're going to quickly relate thought to the non-physical form of thought. But what we need to understand is that the physical world is still thought. This is a thought universe. We think that there's a separation between the physical world and the non-physical world. And the truth is that there is not, because every form of energy is connected to the one above and the one below. So when we start to think about thought, start to think about H2O or water. So the example I gave before of you have water, H2O, displaying itself because of the vibration it's in as liquid based upon the temperature. So the temperature controls the vibratory rate of the molecules or whatever's spinning around in there. If you take that water and you add more heat to it, you're going to alter the vibration of the water, and it's going to become lighter. It's going to become etherical. It's going to become you can't even see it if it's been light enough. Then you could take that same H2O, change the vibration again, and you could walk on it. So that's why I always laugh when they talk about like Jesus Christ like walked on water. I was like, Canadians been walking on water for hundreds of years.
Totally.
I drove on water, man.
That's awesome.
We used to get to my parents' cabin. We used to have to drive like across a kilometer worth of ice.
Yeah, that's wild. That freaks me out, I'll be honest.
I remember one time my dad and I went ice fishing, and we drove up, we must have drove for like 10 kilometers or so along on the ice up to the fishing area. And when we got there, there was a truck that a bunch of stressed out teenagers were around because it was sinking in the ice. They hit like a push. So whenever you're driving on the ice and the ice is pushed together, that's a weak spot because it's broke. It's compressed itself. It's expanded too much and it's pushed up. And it was my friend. It was my friend, John Benko.
Terrible.
His parents were in Mexico, and he took his dad's truck to go with the boys fishing.
Right.
And his truck wound up at the bottom of Lake Diefenbaker.
Unfortunately, that transmutation was not in favor.
Not in favor of him. So thought moves from the head. So really, what are we doing when we do a 30-day year? Well, we're trying to learn, we're following a philosophy to learn how to take thought from our heads and manifest it or transmute it into its physical form. That's all human beings do.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. It's fun. It's so cool that you say that. I mean, it is, it's like the manifestation process. Like the transmutation of energy in the scientific sense, moving through a human is like the manifestation process. It's kind of like what you're saying there. Because when I thought of energy at first, my first thought was, it's my attitude. the transmutation of my attitude. And I was like, well, because you can take many attitudes
Your
in a
attitude
day.
would be like your vibration. Your attitude
Right.
would be like the temperature.
Your vibration. There we go. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
more sense. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I
You
get
know?
it. Yeah. Because at first I was like, that's where I went mentally. I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be my attitude, but no, it isn't. It's actually taking the ideas from the etherical state, moving them into the physical state.
We're doing it all the time.
We
I
are.
always laugh when people I've heard some people say, oh, the law of attraction's bullshit, And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
It's
just
a law of the universe. It's the binding force of the universe.
So he just fell asleep in science class. He just didn't know.
Well, not only that, there's just a lot of bullshitters teaching it.
There is. But can we play a game for a second? Can we play the manifestation game?
Sure.
The manifestation game.
Okay, so what could I manifest in the next 10 minutes? Because I've been thinking about a cheeseburger. I must be getting hungry. I was like, man, that's a thought in my head right now. I can see the McDonald's yellow paper and I can see the bun and the sesame seeds. I'm pretty sure this studio is probably within 5 minutes of a Mackie Deers, as Dave and I call it, Mackie Deers. So I could pick myself up a cheeseburger in about 5 minutes. It's a pretty fast manifestation.
It is.
That's the manifestation game.
That's it. Wow.
Gestation period of 5 minutes.
It's a great little lesson because your manifestations are all based upon your desires.
I just figured out how I'm going to teach my children about manifestation.
Every human being, I got to go into this, Jacq, because I got to fight for some rights here.
Go for it.
To hear people say that law of attraction is nonsense, that's nonsense. It's the binding agent of the universe. Every human being on this planet, all they do all day long is move thought into their physical world. That's all they do. Every human being on this planet is a manifestation center for thought. And what's a goal? Well, a goal is an idea. That's all it is. Where does it exist when it's first conceived? Well, it just exists in your head. It exists in the non-physical. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to make it physical. You're trying to bring it into the third dimension. Do you know that when you start following the 30-day year philosophy, the last place that will experience your goals is your five senses. The last stop of a goal is the physical world. And once it is the physical world, baby, the law of entropy is going to send it right back to the non-physical world.
Exactly. Just like my cheeseburger. So I'm thinking about the cheeseburger. It's just an apple in my eye right now. Seedling in my brain.
Oh, it's a burger in your eye.
Then there's a burger in my eye. And then
this woman's got a burger in her eye.
I got a burger in my eye. But then there's an equation to me getting that burger, Dave. There's distance, right? There's time. There's an equation, right? There's money. There's a few things that need to happen to transact. The guy's got to cook the patty and get it assembled, wrap it up for me.
Thousands of things.
There's so many little things, right? But there's an equation. There's a mathematical equation to me getting that cheeseburger. And then I bite it, yum, 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 in my tummy, digests, out it comes later. And like you said, it gets turned into nutrients for some wonderful farmer out there that's going to grow more wheat and grow more carrots or whatever.
Feed more cows, whatever.
A few more cows or feed their cows, etc. Transmutation of energy.
Constant.
It can just think about it in the simplest term, like cheeseburger in my head, go to my car, drive there, buy it, eat it. It gets digested. It just cycles through. But we can just think about it in terms of much larger terms. $1 million goal, $100,000 a month. Just an apple in my eye right now.
That's right.
It's just an idea in my head. It's just the same as the cheeseburger. And then how is the energy going to transmute to make that my physical reality? So what service is going to need to be rendered in order to earn the money, right? And then what kind of team am I going to need to help me earn that kind of money? What am I going to need to let go of? It's still like a mathematical equation, right? And then one day I open up my bank statement. This was true for us. We actually had hit $1 million and didn't know for about 3 months. in our business because we probably were doing our bookkeeping every quarter at that point. We do it monthly now. We probably weren't doing it as much as we do it now.
Yeah, just shy of 3 months. It was like a little over 8 weeks or something. And
right.
we didn't even know. We're so busy.
We didn't even know.
No, we're so busy with the cause and the idea. We didn't even realize that we manifested
that
it.
it had transmuted.
Yeah, didn't even know.
Didn't even know. And so then it just keeps cycling like that. So it's just fascinating to me. So that law is so important. And I think it's one of the biggest ideas to kind of latch onto from today's episode is that everything you want, everything in your life just starts as an idea in your head. Everything. Conscious or unconscious, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's like when I asked you last week where I said, Jacq, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from personal development? And your answer was so kick butt. Do you want to share it or
Sure. It all begins with me. I am the cause.
You're the center.
I'm the center of my life.
And you and I went to Mexico a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you
it was a wild
got
experience
sick, right?
for me. Yeah.
A little bit.
For sure.
Not like terribly sick.
No.
But you did get sick.
Like, sick enough to feel crappy. Anyways, so about 3-4 days into the trip, this is typical Dave and I. So when we're in a place, we always have to check out the real estate scene. That's kind of like how things go, right? So you start Googling and you're like, how much is a beautiful little, beachfront, villa cost in this part of the world? And then you go down the rabbit hole and you watch some YouTubes. And then one of these guys was saying, don't buy in Tulum because all the critters and bugs and snakes are going to just like drive you crazy.
Spiders.
I have a big issue with spiders. It's a big thing for me. And I heard that and like, that's all I could think about after. It's like all I could think about was like, oh, there's gross spiders here. I was like, they're going to find me and they're going to be in this beautiful place we're staying. And so after that, I heard that. I was checking behind every toilet. I couldn't, at night when the sun would go down, I'd be like, they're coming in. I know it. I went cuckoo. I went just like my phobia kicked in and I started to just have like this anxiety and I'd be like, and then I would just tell myself, no, Jacq, just shut up. Like, don't listen to that. Like, it's nonsense. Like, you're fine. This is like a beautiful, like 5-diamond resort. Like nothing, like don't even go there.
You're not in the jungle, Jacq.
I'm not in the jungle. It's not going to happen.
You're not in Arachnophobia, the movie.
I know. It's like, it's not going to happen. And that's how I would get through the day. I'd be like, it's not going to happen. This is stupid. Get control of yourself. Anyways, it was probably 3 days into that sort of like spiral. And I woke up one morning, I woke up one morning just so ill. And I had food poisoning, like minor food poisoning. But food poisoning nonetheless. And when I was at the restaurant we ate at the night before, I remember there's this beautiful plant beside me and I kept seeing a spider on it. And I was like,
a real one or imaginary?
In my head.
Oh my God.
And I was like, kept feeling like every time I would look over, it was going to be there. It was cuckoo, man. It was cuckoo. It was like,
man, people are nuts.
It was like,
yeah, you could be sitting with your own wife and you did a freaking nut job.
Well, come on. I was like keeping it together. I was chatty. I was personable. We had some guests there. It was good. Anyway, but in the meantime, I'd be like looking like this and being like, oh, there's this beautiful plant and there's something's going to come out of it. Nothing ever came out of it. Anyways, I got sick. I got sick and I also got a pimple on my forehead all in the same day. And then I was like feeling terrible and I was like, no, it's our trip. I'm going to power through. So I just powered through and then got very sick again after the busy day we had. And yeah, I just started to reflect on it and I was like, I attracted this. It's this weird phobia, fear spiral that I've been like fighting against. And this is unfortunately how it manifested into being physically ill. And it just showed up. The signs showed up on me. And I think anybody that gets, quote unquote, stressed, nervous, whatever, your triggers and then you know what happens to you. I mean, if you have the self-awareness, you know what happens to you.
Yeah, like the medical industry knows that stress is, who's ever heard this? Stress is a killer.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we know that it's corrosive. We know that it makes you ill.
For sure. But here's the crazy thing, and I was like really contemplating this for a while as I was thinking about fear. And I was like, well, the fear in my head was the spiders, right? They never came. That's not what came. Like illness came. And so fear manifests in the human being physically through the body. It's not that I was attracting things. I never even saw a spider the whole time we were there. But I got sick because of what was going through my head. And so that just made me think about fear in a different way, where it's like, yeah, it's just this energy, this like suppressed energy. And then it can just take its toll on your well-being, and it takes its toll on your nervous system. And then all of a sudden you notice breakdown physically.
Well, I remember sharing this. You were sharing this story with somebody over the Christmas too, and they couldn't accept that you were taking responsibility for getting sick.
No, I know. Yeah. You blame the cook well, there was another sign that I shouldn't have had that meal because the name of the meal was the same name of this other dish that made me sick on a different trip to South America. Anyways, long story. I just saw all the signs
you didn't
were there.
trust your intuition.
Exactly. All the signs were there that Jack's getting sick.
And that's all vibration. So what is
vibration?
Yeah, what is vibration when it comes?
And I attracted it. No one else got sick. You guys were fine.
We were kicking ass, man. What's vibration to a human being? Well, vibration is feeling. Mm-hmm. It's the state of mind that you're in. So you can be in a fear vibration, you can be in a faith vibration, you can be... I think that human beings really just live in there's only two states a person can live in: inspired or uninspired.
Yeah.
In spirit
Basically.
or out of spirit.
Yeah, pretty much. And then all the different emotions just kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of people ask, like, well, where can I study the laws like that? And, you know, the truth is there's not really any books really written on outright like that about them. I should write one.
You should.
It's very hard though, because I'm like, will people just be bored with it, or
well, I think
do they
that
really want to hear it?
It's just about applying them to your life. It's just I think the best way to think about it is just you've learned the laws today, apply them to your life. Like, think of the law of polarity. Something really bad happens to you, really bad, but we know that there's an equal and opposite silver lining to that. That's the law of polarity at work, you know? So something really bad happens, you know that something good is on the way.
Yeah, or if you look at the degree of what a loss is too, like if you think about the law of polarity, let's say, Jacq, you were like walking around and you used to have $1 and you lost it. How would you respond to that? If zero's neutral and you lost $1.
I don't think I care very much.
Exactly. So very small change,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you, let's say you and I, like, we didn't know about this material, but you and I we worked for 20 years. We've been saving up our money. We've actually have $200,000 worth of cash, which we were saving 10 grand a year for 20 years. And we're going to buy our property to retire in or something. Mm-hmm. And we're working like dogs for 20 years for that. And then you come home one day and your house is burnt down. How would you react to that?
Yeah, that would hurt.
Exactly. So it'd be a huge shift over. Mm-hmm. So when you start to think about the laws, because everything's through the law of relativity too, you understand that all the laws, they're all just describing the same thing. They're all just different perceptions of the basic law, true law, which is create or disintegrate, grow or die, expand or contract.
Yeah.
And understand that every thought you think is either expanding your life or constricting your life. Every thought. And every thought you think contains a life. The same way that the acorn contains the oak tree, the truth is an acorn contains a forest.
Right.
Because every oak tree will produce 10,000 more acorns in its life.
Right.
So the acorn doesn't just contain an oak tree. The acorn contains a forest. And that's what the 30-day year philosophy is all about. Because you're not just what you think you are. You're not just what you think you are. You are infinite. You're an infinite being. You're capable of so much more. And if you stop and listen, you'll feel it.
So if the acorn is my goal, and then within the acorn is like the blueprint for 10,000 more acorns, that means there's a blueprint for 10,000 more goals within my goal.
That's right. That's why the 30-day year philosophy is so kick butt. Because when you and I, so we set the goal of 100 grand a month. 31 months later, we were producing that. Then we had to change it a few months later, once we made it consistent, change it a few months later to $1 million a month.
Yeah.
And then we had $1 million a month.
Right.
And then we got to get consistent producing that.
Right.
Once you get consistent producing that, then yeah, folks, listen up. You'll be going to 10 million a month.
Right.
And if you go to 10 million a month, then you go to 100 million. And let's get honest, that'll fill a lifetime. So you can live an entire life through this philosophy.
Right.
Goal after goal after goal, all by law. As you study and understand the laws, observe nature. Start asking better questions. Here's one of the best questions I've ever asked myself. How am I the same as a tree? You see, we think we're separate from nature. We're not separate from nature. We're a part of nature. People think that they're separate from the universe. What are you talking about? You are a part of the universe. You're in the universe. One verse, one unfoldment.
Yeah.
And I think as people start to understand that your being is governed by laws, all of your results, there's no mistakes in this universe. Everything is governed by law. If I held out my hand and I had a pen in it and I let go of the pen and it floated, you'd be like, holy crow. Right? You would know there must be some, impossible. Can't defy the law. Now, if you and I were out in space, law of gravity would be very different and we'd be floating around.
Right.
Why? All based on the environment. So as you start to think about that, 30-day year philosophy, 30-day year lifestyle is all based upon the environment that you're in that will determine the ease of which you operate within the laws.
So you said earlier that we should compare ourselves to nature. So you could compare yourself to a tree,
Yeah.
right?
See how you're the same as nature. Find the similarities.
Right. So when I think about that, it's like, okay, there's a seed, there's the acorn, there's a blueprint inside the acorn. I plant it, I get a tree, right? So I'm me, I'm Jacqueline, I have a goal, I plant it in my mind. There's a blueprint to that goal. And if I focus on it and nurture it, it will grow and become reality. But because I'm a human, I'm subject to distraction. I'm subject to interference. I'm subject to all kinds of things. I have free will. I have choice. I can pivot. I can take on another project. I can move on. I can let that idea go and take another one. A tree doesn't have that choice. And so I like the idea of comparing myself to that because it actually brings me peace of mind that it can just be that simple. And for myself in 2025, I've chosen the word focus as my intention for the year. Because I know if I can just focus on the goal that I've set, if you've set a 30-day year goal and if you just focus on it, everything is within it.
Yeah, the goal actually has all the information to replicate itself into the world. So that's what I was saying earlier about the intangible and the tangible thought, because you're literally just moving that image, that thought from an intangible form into a physical form. Like, right now in the studio, we're looking at these speakers. Well, where'd those speakers come from? Well, if you start pulling the thread back of these speakers, you're going to land in the mind of a human being. Those speakers used to be in a non-physical form. But the thing is that we think because they're in the physical world that they're no longer thought or they're no longer an idea. Yes, they are. They're just like the water. Ice is still H2O. Ice is still water. It's just in a different form.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yep. I'm with you.
So that's the
I like
deal.
that.
So when you look at the world, it's all still ideas. It's just in a different vibration. So it's in a physical form.
Very cool. I love it. So where do we go? Where do we go next? What would your marching orders be?
Well, you could ask yourself the question that I didn't give the answer to because I want everyone to ask themselves the question. How am I the same as a tree? Like go sit beside a tree, observe a tree, say, how am I the same? How does my success in life, if I'm going to get help achieving my goals and I only can rely on this tree to help me, how am I the same as this tree? How is the tree and me the same? It used to just be an acorn. How did it become an oak tree? Well, I used to just be a carpenter earning $5,000 a month. How did I become a multimillionaire mentor? Same laws. When people understand that the same laws that grew the tree are the exact same laws that are going to help you improve your life.
Thank you for listening to the 30-Day Year podcast. If you want more episodes like this, hit subscribe. And to learn more about us, visit conwaymentorship.com. If you have a question for Dave and I, please email us at hello@conwaymentorship.com. Before the next episode, sit down and reflect. How are you similar to nature? How are you similar to the way a tree grows or attracts what it needs to grow?
Produced at
Sound Lounge by T-Bone.